Let me tell you something I've learned on this path of life. The mind, left unchecked, can become its own worst enemy. It's like a monkey hopping from branch to branch, restless and relentless, grabbing onto fears, worries, and endless distractions. You've felt it too, haven't you? That endless chatter that keeps you up at night or makes it impossible to focus during the day. It's exhausting. I used to think the answer was just powering through or ignoring it, but that only made it worse. Then, one day, I came across something profound in the teachings of the Buddha, a way to quiet the storm within, not by fighting it, but by understanding it. Let me take you to a moment that changed everything for me. I was sitting in the middle of a busy day, overwhelmed by noise, not just outside, but inside my head. Deadlines, expectations, that harsh voice telling me I wasn't doing enough. It was all piling up. And then I remembered a simple practice I'd read about. Stopping. Just stopping. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and noticed the thoughts racing through my mind. Instead of fighting them, I let them be. Slowly, like ripples in a pond settling after a stone is thrown, my mind started to calm. That moment wasn't about finding instant peace. It was about discovering that peace is already there, beneath the chaos. And it's a lesson that stayed with me ever since. Now, when the noise gets too loud, I remember those timeless teachings. Strategies that don't require special tools or drastic life changes, just a shift in how we see and respond to the world. Over the years, I've shared these with others, and I've seen how transformative they can be, no matter how chaotic life gets. So, let's dive into these strategies together. They're rooted in ancient wisdom, but are so simple that anyone can start using them right now. If you're ready to step out of the storm and into clarity, this is where we begin. 1. Accept what is without resisting it. Let's be honest. Life doesn't always go the way we want it to. Plans fall apart, people disappoint us, and situations can feel unfair. I've been there, just like you. For years, I wasted so much energy resisting what was right in front of me. I would fight reality, get angry at circumstances, and dwell on why things shouldn't be happening the way they were. But the truth is, resistance only made things worse. Buddhism teaches us something powerful. Suffering often comes not from the events themselves, but from our attachment to how we think things should be. When we resist life's flow, we create friction. It's like trying to swim upstream against a strong current. You exhaust yourself, but you don't actually get anywhere. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, I went through a difficult time. A project I had poured my heart into completely fell apart. I was devastated, replaying everything I could have done differently, blaming myself, and wishing things had turned out another way. The more I resisted the situation, the more pain I felt. My mind became a battlefield, filled with frustration and regret. I couldn't move forward because I was too busy fighting against what had already happened. One day, while talking to a teacher, they asked me a simple question: "Can you change it?" The answer was obvious: no, I couldn't. What was done was done. And then they said, "If you can't change it, why are you letting it take over your peace?" That question hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that by clinging to my resistance, I was holding myself hostage. That's when I started practicing acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or liking what's happening. It simply means acknowledging reality as it is, without adding unnecessary suffering by wishing it were different. When I let go of my resistance, something remarkable happened. I felt lighter. The pain didn't vanish, but it stopped consuming me. I found the strength to face the situation with clarity instead of frustration. Buddhism often talks about impermanence, how everything in life is constantly changing. When we resist what's happening, we're fighting against this natural flow. But when we embrace the truth of impermanence, we can let go of our need to control everything and find peace in the present moment. Here's an example I like to use. Imagine you're walking in the rain without an umbrella. You have two choices. You can grumble about how wet and cold you are, or you can accept that you're going to get wet and keep walking. Either way, you're still in the rain, but only one of those choices allows you to stay calm and keep moving forward. Acceptance is about choosing not to add unnecessary suffering to an already challenging situation. So how do we practice this? Start small. The next time you feel resistance bubbling up, whether it's toward a situation, a person, or even yourself, pause and ask, can I change this? If the answer is no, remind yourself that fighting it won't help. Take a deep breath and let go. This isn't about giving up. It's about freeing yourself from the mental struggle that holds you back. Acceptance is a skill, and like any skill, it gets easier with practice. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might find yourself slipping back into old habits of resistance. That's okay. Every time you catch yourself resisting and choose acceptance instead, you're strengthening your ability to stay peaceful in the face of life's challenges. Now, when life throws curveballs my way, I remind myself of this. This moment is already here. How I meet it is my choice. That doesn't mean I like everything that happens. It just means I don't waste energy fighting reality. Instead, I use that energy to respond in a way that aligns with my values. When you start to practice acceptance, you'll notice something incredible. The same situations that used to leave you feeling drained and defeated will start to lose their grip on you. You'll find yourself more grounded, more resilient, and better able to face life as it is, not as you wish it were. 2. Practice mindfulness in the present moment. Let me ask you something. How often are you fully present in the moment? I'll admit, for a long time, I wasn't. My mind was always somewhere else, rehashing the past, worrying about the future, or chasing distractions. It felt like I was living everywhere except right here, right now. And you know what? It was exhausting. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is all we truly have. The past is gone, and the future isn't here yet. But how often do we actually live in the now? I used to think I was too busy to slow down and be present, but then I realized something. The busyness wasn't in my schedule. It was in my mind. There was a time when I was juggling too much at once: work, family, personal goals. I was so consumed by what I needed to do next that I couldn't focus on what I was doing right now. Even when I was with loved ones, my mind was elsewhere. It wasn't until I started practicing mindfulness that I began to understand how much I was missing out on. Mindfulness is simply the practice of paying attention, fully and without judgment, to what's happening in the present moment. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful tools I've ever discovered. When I started practicing mindfulness, I noticed a shift almost immediately. Tasks that used to feel stressful, like washing dishes or answering emails, became opportunities to ground myself in the here and now. Here's what I've learned. The present moment is never as overwhelming as our thoughts about it. Think about it. When you're focused on just one breath, one step, or one action, there's no room for worry about what's next or regret about what's behind you. There's just this moment, and it's enough. One of my favorite mindfulness practices is something you can do anytime, anywhere. It's called mindful breathing. All you have to do is take a few slow, deep breaths and pay attention to the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. That's it. No fancy equipment, no elaborate rituals, just you and your breath. When your mind starts to wander, gently bring it back to your breath. At first, it might feel like your mind is too chaotic to settle. That's normal. The goal isn't to stop your thoughts. It's to notice them without getting caught up in them. Over time, you'll find that those moments of presence become longer and more frequent. Now I approach life differently. Instead of rushing through my day on autopilot, I try to meet each moment with curiosity and openness. Whether I'm having a conversation, eating a meal, or simply sitting in silence, I remind myself to be fully present. And let me tell you, life feels so much richer when you're actually there to experience it. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this. The present moment is your greatest ally. When you train your mind to stay here, you free yourself from the chains of the past and the uncertainty of the future. You discover a sense of peace that no external circumstances can shake. 3. Practice emotional detachment. Let me start by saying this. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting down or becoming cold. It's about loving and living deeply without letting your happiness be tied to things you can't control. I used to struggle with this idea. When I cared about something or someone, I'd pour everything into it. But with that came a fear of losing it. That fear became a source of constant stress. Every time something didn't go as planned, it felt like my whole world was shaking. Then I came across a Buddhist teaching that changed my perspective. It said, "Attachment is the root of suffering." At first I resisted this idea. How could loving or caring about something cause suffering? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. It wasn't the love or care itself. It was my attachment to outcomes, my need for things to stay exactly as I wanted them, that caused the pain. Let me share a personal experience. A few years ago, I was deeply invested in a relationship. I wanted everything to work out perfectly. But as things started to change, I found myself holding on tighter, trying to control every little detail. It wasn't healthy, and it didn't help. The harder I held on, the more anxious I became. When things eventually ended, I was devastated, not just by the loss, but by the energy I had wasted trying to resist the inevitable. That's when I started practicing emotional detachment, and let me tell you, it was a game changer. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. You still give your best to the people and things you love, but you understand that everything in life is temporary. You accept that change is a natural part of life. One of the teachings that really helped me was this: don't cling to the wave, enjoy the ocean. It's a reminder that life is in constant motion. If you cling to one wave, trying to keep it from crashing, you'll miss the beauty of the entire ocean. Here's how I started practicing this in my own life. I began by noticing my attachments. When I felt anxious or upset, I asked myself, what am I holding on to here? Sometimes it was a specific outcome, like wanting a project to succeed. Other times it was a deeper fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of change. Once I identified the attachment, I asked myself another question. What happens if I let go? At first, letting go felt scary, like losing control. But the truth is, control is an illusion. No matter how much we plan, life will unfold as it will. The beauty of detachment is that it frees you from this endless struggle. It allows you to embrace life as it is, not as you wish it to be. One of the simplest ways to practice emotional detachment is through gratitude. When you're grateful for what you have in the moment, you stop worrying so much about losing it. You appreciate it fully without clinging to it. For me, this was transformative. Instead of fearing change, I learned to see it as an opportunity to grow. Now, when life throws unexpected challenges my way, I remind myself, this is part of the ocean. I don't cling to the wave or try to control it. I ride it, knowing that another wave will come. This mindset has brought me so much peace. It's not about not feeling, it's about feeling deeply while staying grounded. 4. Reflect daily on your day. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you really paused and looked back on your day? Not in a critical way, but with curiosity and honesty. For a long time, I didn't do this. I'd rush through my days, reacting to everything that came my way, and then fall into bed exhausted without really understanding how I'd spent my time. But when I started the practice of daily reflection, everything changed. In Buddhism, self-awareness is a cornerstone of growth. Reflection isn't about judgment, it's about observation. It's like holding up a mirror to your actions, thoughts, and emotions so you can learn from them. And let me tell you, this practice has been one of the most grounding and transformative things I've ever done. Here's how it started for me. I was going through a rough patch, feeling like life was out of my control. I'd end each day with a sense of unease, replaying mistakes or feeling overwhelmed by everything I hadn't done. Then one evening, a mentor suggested a simple exercise. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to reflect. Ask yourself 3 questions. What went well? What didn't? And what can I learn? At first, it felt awkward, like I was forcing something. But as the days went on, I noticed something incredible. Those 5 minutes of reflection gave me clarity. Instead of letting my mind spiral into regret or worry, I could see patterns in my behavior and understand what needed to change. I started to feel more in control, not of the world around me, but of myself. One of the most powerful aspects of this practice is how it brings your attention to the present. When you reflect on your day, you're not stuck in the past or worrying about the future. You're looking at what is, the choices you made, the emotions you felt, the challenges you faced, and from there, you can decide how to move forward. Let me share a story. One evening during my reflection, I realized I'd been impatient with someone close to me. In the moment, I had justified my reaction. They were being difficult after all. But as I sat with it that night, I saw the situation differently. I realized my impatience had more to do with my own stress than with anything they had done. The next day, I apologized. That small act of reflection didn't just help me grow, it strengthened my relationship. Daily reflection isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Some days you'll notice things you're proud of, moments of kindness, patience, or strength. Other days, you'll see areas where you fell short. Both are valuable. The key is to approach yourself with compassion. You're not here to criticize yourself. You're here to learn. I like to write my reflections in a journal. There's something about putting pen to paper that helps me process my thoughts more clearly. But you don't have to write. It could be as simple as sitting quietly and going over the questions in your mind. The important thing is to make it a consistent practice. Now, at the end of each day, I look forward to those few minutes of stillness. It's a chance to reset, to let go of what didn't go well, and to celebrate what did. It's also a reminder that each day is a new opportunity to grow. If you've never tried this before, I encourage you to start tonight. Take just 5 minutes to reflect on your day. Be honest but kind with yourself. And remember, the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Through reflection, you'll find clarity. Through clarity, you'll find peace. And through peace, you'll discover the wisdom that was within you all along. 5. Control your thoughts. Don't let them control you. Let me ask you a tough question. How often do you find yourself spiraling into negative thoughts? You know the kind, the ones that take a minor mistake and turn it into a full-blown catastrophe in your mind. I've been there too. For years, I let my thoughts run the show, and it felt like I was living at their mercy. One small worry could snowball into a mountain of anxiety before I even realized it. But then I learned something that changed everything. You are not your thoughts. In Buddhism, there's a powerful teaching about the nature of the mind. Thoughts are like clouds. They come and go, shifting constantly, but they're not the sky itself. The sky is your true nature, vast, calm, and unchanging. When you identify with every thought that crosses your mind, you lose sight of that sky. You let those fleeting clouds control your emotions, actions, and even your peace. I remember a specific moment when this teaching hit me hard. I was replaying an awkward conversation I'd had earlier that day, convincing myself I'd said all the wrong things. My mind kept coming up with new reasons to feel embarrassed, and I was spiraling. Then, out of nowhere, I paused and asked myself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? That simple question broke the spell. I realized my thoughts were creating a story that wasn't even true. From that day on, I started paying attention to my inner dialogue. Controlling your thoughts doesn't mean suppressing them or pretending they don't exist. It means learning to observe them without getting swept away. This practice is often called mindful awareness. When a thought arises, instead of immediately believing it, you take a step back and examine it. Where did it come from? Is it rooted in fear, doubt, or insecurity? Is it helpful, or is it just noise? One of the best ways to practice this is through something I call mental labeling. When a thought comes up, instead of diving into it, label it for what it is. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, "I'll never be good enough," you might label it as self-doubt. If you're worrying about an outcome, label it as anxiety. This simple act of naming your thoughts creates space between you and them. It reminds you that you are the observer, not the thought itself. Here's another practice that's helped me tremendously: reframing. When you catch a negative thought, challenge it. Ask yourself, is there another way to look at this? For example, instead of thinking, "I failed at this," you might reframe it as, "I learned something valuable from this experience." This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing a perspective that empowers you instead of dragging you down. Over time, you'll notice that the thoughts that used to control you start losing their grip. It's not that they disappear entirely, but they no longer hold the same power. You'll find yourself less reactive, more grounded, and more in control of how you respond to life. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is like a garden. If you don't tend to it, weeds, negative thoughts, doubts, and fears will take over. But if you cultivate it with care, planting seeds of positivity and mindfulness, it will flourish. Remember, you have the power to choose what grows in your mental garden. Every time you catch a thought trying to take control and instead choose to observe it, you're reclaiming your peace. And the more you practice, the stronger your ability to guide your thoughts becomes. You are the gardener, not the weeds. You are the sky, not the clouds. 6. Take intentional pauses. During the day, life can feel like a non-stop race, can't it? Emails, deadlines, meetings, family responsibilities. It's like we're always running from one thing to the next without a moment to catch our breath. I used to think that the busier I was, the more productive I'd be. But the truth is, all that rushing left me burned out and disconnected from myself. It wasn't until I started taking intentional pauses throughout my day that I realized how powerful a simple moment of stillness can be. Buddhism teaches us the importance of stopping, not permanently, but briefly, pausing to reconnect with the present moment. It's in these pauses that we reset, recharge, and regain clarity. Think of it like this. If you were driving a car without ever stopping for gas, you'd eventually run out of fuel. Pausing is how we refuel our minds and spirits. Let me share a personal example. A few months ago, I had one of those days where everything felt overwhelming. My to-do list was endless, and my mind was racing. I kept pushing through, telling myself I didn't have time to stop. But by mid-afternoon, I hit a wall. I wasn't accomplishing anything because my mind was too scattered. So, I decided to try something different. I stepped away from my desk, went outside, and spent 5 minutes just breathing. No phone, no distractions, just me and the sound of the wind. When I came back, I felt completely different. My mind was clearer, and I tackled my work with renewed focus. Intentional pauses don't have to be long or complicated. Even a single minute of stillness can make a difference. One practice I love is called the mindful breath pause. It's simple. Wherever you are, stop what you're doing. Close your eyes if you can, and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Feel the air entering and leaving your body. That's it. In those few moments, you create a space of calm within the chaos. Another technique is to set reminders for yourself throughout the day. I like to use my phone to remind me to pause every couple of hours. When the alarm goes off, I take a moment to check in with myself. How am I feeling? Am I tense? Am I present? Or am I running on autopilot? These pauses help me stay connected to myself instead of getting lost in the busyness of the day. One of my favorite Buddhist teachings is this: in stillness, everything becomes clear. When we're constantly moving, we don't give ourselves a chance to see things as they are. But when we pause, even briefly, we create space for clarity to emerge. Problems that seemed overwhelming start to feel manageable. Emotions that felt chaotic begin to settle. And we remember what truly matters. Pausing isn't just about calming your mind, it's also an act of self-care. It's a way of saying to yourself, you are worth this moment of peace. In a world that values constant productivity, taking time to pause can feel like rebellion. But it's a rebellion worth joining. Because when you take care of your mind, you show up better for everything and everyone in your life. So here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow, find 3 moments to pause intentionally. They don't have to be long. Maybe it's a few breaths before you start your workday. Maybe it's a moment of silence before you eat lunch. Maybe it's stepping outside for a minute between tasks. Whatever it looks like for you, commit to those pauses. I promise you'll feel the difference. Life doesn't have to be a race. When you learn to pause, you'll find that the stillness you create in those moments becomes a wellspring of peace and strength that carries you through the rest of your day. And isn't that worth taking a moment for? 7. Cultivate gratitude for the small things. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on what's missing in life? I've been there, caught up in chasing the next big thing, believing happiness was always just out of reach. For years, I thought gratitude meant waiting for something extraordinary to happen. But the truth I've learned through Buddhism is this: real gratitude isn't found in the grand moments. It's found in the small, everyday blessings we often overlook. There was a time when I felt stuck, weighed down by all the things I thought I lacked. I was always comparing myself to others, dwelling on what I didn't have instead of appreciating what I did. One day, I heard a Buddhist teaching that shifted my perspective entirely. It said, "The mind is like a field. If you plant seeds of gratitude, joy will grow." I realized then that gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a practice, a habit we cultivate every single day. One of the most transformative moments for me was during a walk in my neighborhood. It was a simple day, nothing special. But as I walked, I noticed the warmth of the sun on my skin, the sound of birds singing, and the way the breeze gently moved the leaves on the trees. For the first time in a long time, I felt deeply content, not because something amazing had happened, but because I was fully present with the beauty of that moment. That's when I understood what it means to be grateful for the small things. Buddhism teaches that gratitude is a key to peace because it shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have. It's a way of training the mind to see abundance instead of scarcity. And here's the best part. The more you practice gratitude, the more natural it becomes. It's like strengthening a muscle. You start small, and over time, it grows. One practice that has changed my life is keeping a gratitude journal. Every evening, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for that day. They don't have to be big or dramatic. Some days, it's as simple as the taste of a good cup of tea or a kind word from a friend. This practice has taught me to notice the small joys that make life rich and meaningful. Gratitude isn't just about feeling good, it's about seeing life clearly. When you start to focus on the blessings already present, you realize how much you've been taking for granted. The roof over your head, the meals you eat, the people who care about you, these are all gifts. Even on difficult days, there's always something to be thankful for, even if it's just the fact that you made it through. Let me share a tip that works wonders. When you feel overwhelmed by negativity, pause and find one thing, just one thing, you can be grateful for in that moment. It could be as simple as the fact that you're breathing. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges, but it helps you face them with a calmer, more resilient mind. Gratitude is like a lens that brings the world into focus. When you practice it, you start to see beauty in the mundane, joy in the ordinary, and abundance in what you already have. It's a quiet revolution of the heart, one that brings peace and contentment to even the busiest, most chaotic days. 8. Learn to let go of the past. Letting go of the past is one of the hardest lessons I've ever had to learn. For years, I carried the weight of old regrets, mistakes, and hurts. It was like dragging a heavy suitcase everywhere I went, exhausting and unnecessary. I didn't realize it at the time, but holding on to the past was stealing my peace in the present. In Buddhism, there's a profound teaching that says, "Let go or be dragged." When I first heard this, it stopped me in my tracks. I realized I was letting the past pull me in every direction, replaying painful memories, dwelling on what I could have done differently, and reliving moments I couldn't change. It was only when I decided to loosen my grip that I began to feel free. One moment that really brought this lesson home for me was when I made a mistake at work. I had put so much pressure on myself to be perfect, and when things didn't go as planned, I couldn't stop beating myself up. I replayed the situation in my mind over and over, thinking about what I should have done. But no amount of overthinking could undo what had happened. It was a friend who gently reminded me, "The past is already gone. Why are you still living there?" That question stayed with me. Why was I choosing to carry a burden I didn't need to? Buddhism teaches that clinging to the past is like holding on to a hot coal. It only burns you. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting or pretending something didn't happen. It means accepting it for what it is and choosing to release the hold it has on you. Here's how I started to let go. I began by sitting with the emotions I'd been avoiding. Instead of pushing them away or suppressing them, I allowed myself to feel them fully. It was uncomfortable at first, but I realized that by facing those feelings, I could process them and begin to move on. Avoidance only keeps the pain alive. Acceptance is what sets you free. Another practice that helped me was forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. I used to hold on to so much guilt for things I'd done or said. But Buddhism teaches that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about freeing yourself from its grip. When I started forgiving myself, I felt a weight lift. I wasn't excusing my mistakes. I was learning from them and allowing myself to grow. Letting go is a process, not a one-time decision. Some days, the past will creep back in, and that's okay. The key is to gently remind yourself to return to the present. One technique I use is visualization. When an old memory surfaces, I picture it as a leaf floating down a stream. Instead of grabbing onto it, I watch it drift away. This simple mental image has helped me release so much unnecessary tension. The truth is, we can't change the past, but we can change how we relate to it. When you let go, you create space for new possibilities. You allow yourself to focus on what's in front of you instead of what's behind you. And that's where true peace lies. Now, when I catch myself dwelling on the past, I ask, is this helping me or is it holding me back? More often than not, the answer is clear. And in those moments, I choose to let go. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to move forward. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The past is a teacher, not a prison. Learn the lesson and then let it go. The freedom you'll feel is worth every step of the journey, and there you have it. 8 simple yet powerful strategies rooted in Buddhist wisdom to calm your mind and bring peace into your daily life. These aren't just ideas, they're practices you can start using right now to transform the way you handle life's challenges. Remember, true calm doesn't come from avoiding the storms, but from learning how to find stillness in the middle of them. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these strategies resonates with you the most? Or is there a practice you already use that helps calm your mind? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'd love to start a conversation with you. And if this video brought value to your life, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Let's keep learning and growing together, one mindful step at a time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay peaceful.